Here's the question no one wants to ask. Are young entrepreneurs really ready to lead alone? Or do we need older, wiser voices in the room to keep us from crashing? Someone who's been through the fire, made the mistakes, and can tell you what to avoid before you even see the flames. Today, we're unpacking the tension between wisdom and innovation, when to lean on experience and when to push with fresh ideas, and why the best companies don't choose between the two. They build bridges. You want to be a young boss, but your sales are stuck. You're burned out trying to find the right people, and you end up doing all of the work yourself. You're bleeding money, and you're fighting to keep your business afloat. I've been there. I'm Isabelle Burino, and I've scaled businesses to millions, and I've watched ideas burn to the ground. And I know exactly what it takes to survive and win. This is Young Boss, the podcast that helps you break through the barriers standing between you and the business you deserve, where youth is your power. There's a reason the phrase "nothing new under the sun" has survived for centuries, because sometimes the best teacher is someone who's already been burned by the fire you're about to touch. So many of our young bosses here on the show have talked about having mentors, advisors, business coaches who are older than them, who have helped them see things that they would not have necessarily seen. And the only reason that they know those things is because they've been there. They've been around the block. So surrounding yourself with that wisdom can oftentimes really help you avoid making big mistakes, save a lot of time, energy, money, and stress. But also there goes with the juxtaposition of, but does it slow you down? Does it stop ideas? Because if someone is stuck in older ways of saying, well, I tried that and it didn't work, well, what if I'm doing something new? What if I'm doing something different? So I think that there is this, confusion around having mentors, bosses, a board of advisor who is older than you and saying, is it helpful? Is it not? And today I just really want to pose that question and kind of talk about that, dive in to say, is this something that every young boss needs? Because I also think that as much of a pro, it can be a con. So let's think about this. Before you charge ahead and ask yourself who's in your corner, who's already been there, who's lived through the storm you're walking into, I do think it is important to have them as your wise counsel and ask those questions. But having a mentor, having a coach is different than bringing them in to your business. Because I will say this, there is ego that a lot of young bosses have, that a lot of bosses in general have. I'm not even going to say young, a lot of bosses in general have. And one of the fastest ways to kill your business is by believing your own hype, surrounding yourself with yes people who are going to get you there, and not taking a second to step back and say, is this wise? Has someone else done this? Is this going to kill us? Or, take all of our money, or do this, do that. I'm going to warn you that faking it is never the right choice. There are so many young bosses who have gone way too far in saying, I'm not going to take any advice. I'm going to ignore advice, and I'm just going to go with everything that I think is right and bulldoze forward in this. And when you fake it, a lot of times you end up cheating investors out of the money that they've given you to start a business. You end up lying about numbers or projections or what could happen or what is happening. And this is when things can go down in flames. We've seen this happen over and over again. So I will warn you, do not fake it. Do not put your ego first. You have to be willing to listen. And, quick success can actually poison your character sometimes. When you get a big win and it's based off everything that you wanted to do and you said and you put into action, you're like, oh man, I'm the woman, I can do it. And you go harder and faster in that same direction. And this is where we start to say, okay, we need to pause. We need to slow down a little bit, because reality is struggle builds character. So you have to protect your heart and your spirit, because success without humility is set up for failure. So you want to stay coachable, and you need that balance, okay? You need the balance between I'm young and hungry and I'm willing to take the risk and I'm willing to jump off the ledge and try something no one's ever done before, but also let me lean in. Let me hear what's happened before. Let me check in with some older, wiser people who've been there, done that. And you want to make sure that you stay humble, because if you don't put energy towards that, the world will humble you in ways that you don't want, in ways that you don't like. Okay. I'm also going to say this. Not every old boss is a wise sage, okay? Some are stuck in 1985 and they're gonna drag your business back there with them if you are not careful. So be really careful about who you choose to bring into your business and listen to, who you choose to, seek advice from and have as a mentor. Let's think of some stories, okay? For example, we've got on one end of the spectrum, we've got, the WeWork CEO, right? Adam Newman, okay? We've got Nikola founder Trevor Milton. We've got the Uber founder Travis Kalanick. All three of these are stories where it's an amazing idea. I'm not going to deny that. You're not going to deny that. Uber, are you kidding? What if we didn't have that? Oh, hello, we need it. Amazing idea. And their willingness to just go boom, balls to the walls, throw everything at it, go crazy, brought these things to market. And now we all love them, products and companies that many of us use and serve us well, but they didn't have everything figured out along the way. And they let that ego drive them into the ground, okay? To the point that all three of those businesses got more or less taken from them because they turned out to be liars, frauds, and not doing the right thing, okay? But if we didn't have them, the business wouldn't have blown up. You need sometimes that spark, that person who's willing to go harder, faster, crazier than everybody else, but you also need the balance. So all three of them, their businesses, they got a nice paycheck and they got taken care of, but all taken from them because they weren't willing to seek an older boss's advice. They weren't willing to listen in on what happened before. Now you have the opposite side of this, right? A Steve Jobs who was unceremoniously removed from the company that he started. And then guess what happened? His company, we all know the story, right? Started going down the tubes. And guess what? They called good old Steve back and said, hey, can you come on back? Can you help us out? Can you, we actually do need that innovation. Sometimes it's actually the opposite, where they say you're not old enough, you're not mature enough, you're not wise enough, and they kick you out of your own business. And we're talking like getting into the major leagues here, okay? If you're a young boss and you're starting your business and this is like your first couple of months, weeks, years in business, this might be a little bit far out for you, but just think of this concept. How do you help keep your business, not have it taken from you, but also have people take you seriously? Because we talk about your youth is your power. We talk about how being a young boss can be a pro and a con, but something that we don't consider is, well, what happens when the rest of the world says, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're not wise enough, you can't control this business and take it to the next level, so we're going to take it from you. That's a scary place to be as a business owner. I also want to say this, we've had guests on the show, and I think of, Dr. Erica, for example, who, when I've talked to her about her career in medicine, she, has impressed upon me that going to a younger doctor can actually sometimes be a pro instead of a con. A lot of people think, oh no, I want someone who's been doing this for 50 years. I want someone who's gotten, a ton of experience under their belt. Pause. She was just in the books. She was just learning everything, digging in deep, finding the most innovative ways to deal with these problems and, diseases and whatever it is, okay? An older doctor, they might not be keeping up so much. They might be a little stale or outdated or, suggesting things that worked a long time ago that they've seen work a million times, but what if it's not working anymore? So there are certain circumstances where obviously being a young boss can be a pro, but the world won't always view you that way. The reality is what got us here won't get us there. We have to be creative and new. And if it wasn't for the WeWork, the Nikola, the Uber CEOs and founders, we wouldn't have all of these amazing companies. We need someone to light the fire and get it off the ground. But the challenge isn't choosing old or young. It's knowing when wisdom becomes dead weight and when fresh ideas become reckless, and having the balance between them both, you guys.
Hey, it's Isabelle from Young Boss, and if you have loved getting to hear from our incredible guests on the show, what are you waiting for? Go check out the amazing directory on the youngbosspodcast.com. We've listed all of their information, where you can find them, and more about their business, and so many of them want to connect with other amazing young bosses just like you, or they want to work with you. So go check it out right now, say hi, give them a follow, and make sure that you watch all of our guest episodes because we really have incredible young bosses on this show. And if you're looking to get on the show too, then make sure you leave us a comment so that we can connect with you as well. Check out the show notes for that directory or head to theyoungbosspodcast.com. Now, back to the show.
Here's the truth. Entrepreneurship doesn't care about your birth year. Some of the greatest businesses in the world were built by people in their 20s and others by people collecting Social Security, okay? There's some older bosses, I shout them out all the time when I'm talking to people who are restarting and having second wins, right? Colonel Sanders started KFC at 65, Sam Walton, Walmart at 44, Henry Ford at 39. The world is your oyster. You can start whenever you want. If you have a gift, if you have an idea, you can take it to that next level. You've got other young bosses, right? Kylie Jenner, billionaire, 18 years old, starting her lip kits and all of her makeup brand right there. Shark owner at 19 years old getting started. The DoorDash owner, 20 years old. These are mega brands. It does not matter your age. What matters is what you are willing to do and how you can balance it. Because if you let it go so off track with ego and inexperience, then guess what? It might get taken from you. You might have people who come in and say, let's control this. Let's get it back. Let's bring in these other people and kick you out. And yes, you get a big paycheck, but is that what you wanted? No. You started this business to control this business, to own it, to grow it, to be that founder, be that CEO. You don't want it taken from you. And ego is going to be the fastest way to get that taken from your hands, okay? So I think it's going to be really, really important that you have balance when it comes to this and you do not think that you know everything, because the reality is you don't. And like we said, nothing new under the sun. If you talk to someone who's been in business before, they've probably been through an issue like you're dealing with. And if you just ask them advice, they're probably more than willing to share it with you and help you along the way, so you don't have to dig yourself this grave thinking you have to know all the answers. You don't. Someone else out there, and it's not ChatGPT, okay? Yes, that can give you a lot of answers too, but the wisdom that past business owners have isn't something that you're going to find online. That's something that you learn in a conversation. I'll never forget, I was at a mastermind one time and they had 4 older gentlemen, probably everybody was 70 plus. They were all super successful business owners up on stage, and they called it the OG panel. And I was shocked to learn that every single one of them had been through a bankruptcy. These are 4 successful business owners who I had looked at for years with like, wow, they know what they're doing. They're so wise that, and whatever they say, okay, it's gold and let's look at this. And yet every single one of them had failed miserably at some point in their business career. And once I learned that piece of information, first of all, my respect for them grew immensely. And the wisdom and advice that they would give me in our one-on-one conversations, I actually held it with more weight, knowing what they had been through. So yes, you as a young boss, you are going to fail. You might go through bankruptcy. You might have to shut down a business. You might, get fired and have things taken from you. That will help you when you are on the other side and someone wants advice from you. But right now, how do you avoid those things? How do you make those things less painful? You soak up advice of older bosses, of more wise people who've been there, who've done that. Youth is your power, because you are able to get into the room and people are willing to give you that advice back. But if you don't ask and you lead and drive with ego, it will kill your business and in turn kill you. I'll never forget, I was boarding a plane once and an older man in front of me was thrilled that the pilot had gray hair. Okay. And I was just like, what? This is so weird. He goes, oh, it makes me feel so safe. And then I overheard some of the flight attendants joking that guy who's our pilot was lazy, old school, and not following the protocol the way that the younger pilots do. And it hit me, just like with Dr. Erica. Okay. Age means very different things depending on who's looking. Sometimes an older person looks at a young boss and says, they don't have what it takes. They can't do it. And don't let anyone underestimate you. Like, honestly, it's biblical, right? Don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for people in life. And I really think that that's something that you need to be mindful of. If you know that you're right and you're not lying and you're not inflating numbers and you're not tricking investors, if you're doing the right thing and you sparked that fire and this is your baby, this is your business, take the advice, but keep pushing forward, but never lead with ego. Okay, age is just a headline. Execution is the story. And the story is written by bosses who dare to build, no matter the number on their driver's license. So when the smartest companies don't bet on one generation, the reality is the smartest companies, they don't bet on one generation. They build bridges between them, because the future belongs to the teams that mix fresh eyes with seasoned scars. And that's what you really want. So if you are a young boss and you get a fully young team, you will have blind spots. And if you have a fully older team, okay, you might deal with stagnation. You might deal with people who say, do we really have to try this new system? Do we really have to do this? And that will hold you back. When you diversify, you get stronger, broader businesses that really will take you to the next level. Personally, I'm going to tell you, as a young boss, it is hard for me sometimes to hire someone who is significantly more senior than me. And partially it's because I know that there's different struggles that come with them. There are times where they will say, well, back in my day, we did this, or I don't know if we should try this new method, or you're moving really fast, right? And sometimes those things are really frustrating as a young boss. So I am tempted to hire younger, more willing people who, when I say we're pivoting, we're doing this, we're doing that, they're like, yes, let's go harder and faster. And they want to come along with me. But I also know that that is not wise. I also know that when I go to them and say, why did I flop on this presentation? What did I say wrong over there? What's going on with our sales numbers and why am I seeing this trend? They don't have the wisdom and the experience to help me answer those problems. So I often find myself going to the people who are older on my team who have been in a million rooms where they've done sales presentations, where they've seen different marketing strategies work or flop, and going to them and saying, hey, what's your perspective on this? Give me some advice. How can I do better? What can I tweak? What can I improve on? Take it with a grain of salt. Right? Not everything that a younger or older generation is going to bring you is the best of the best. You've got to learn to kind of balance it all. But the reality is you need both. And if you are leaning all the way one way, it's probably not the best thing for your business. So I'm going to really encourage that you diversify your team. And it isn't a checkbox, it's a growth strategy. The bigger the mix of voices, the stronger the business. And it's not just age, it's ethnicities, it's gender. I really don't like when it's an all-female team or an all-male team. Mix it up, you guys. This is how you can bring in more business at the end of the day, hearing more voices, hearing more opinions. It is difficult, I get it. But at the end of the day, it's not old versus young. It's open versus closed. Open to learning, open to guidance, open to doing things differently. Here's the thing. Don't build a business that's just an echo chamber of your own voice, your own opinion. Diversify, age, gender, experience, background. It isn't just trendy, okay? It's strategy. And if you are a young boss, go find your old boss. Go find a mentor, advisor, parent, whoever it is, someone you can trust who's been there, done that, because nothing new's under the sun, and they're going to be able to tell you about that sunburn that they got. All right. And if you are an old boss, go find some young fire to keep you sharp, keep you on your toes, because the mix is where the magic happens. And that is how you win. Thanks for listening to another episode of Young Boss with your host, Isabelle Burino. Be sure to like, share, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And remember, your youth is your power.